I can kind of eyeball what John would have looked like.
Yeah.
We've got this picture of it. So this would have been John here at the top.
This is a family picture in the living room at 745 Potters Avenue.
Wow. So
that's where it was taken. And what I wouldn't do to find out who were these people.
I was wondering the same thing. Who is this picture of?
Yes, right.
Wow. I was thinking the same.
Was it of my grandfather's mother?
Yeah.
I don't know. See,
Yeah.
I don't know. But my father's in here, and at this point, one of their children had died because it would have been Timothy, who was died at 5 years old of an epidemic.
Right.
But when this picture was taken, the youngest one had not been born. This picture was taken approximately 1906.
Wow.
And my Aunt Mary, the youngest one, was born in 1909.
When since we're talking about the kids, if we could we can go back to them more in detail. But so the first one was John.
John, and the next one was Timothy.
All right. Now John died World War I on his way home, and he was the reporter.
He did get to the United States, but died within about 60 days of getting back
Do you
to the
know
United
what
States.
happened in World War I? Or
Well, he was one of the recipients. There were hundreds, and I don't know if not thousands, who were subjected to mustard gas by the Germans, and that tore his lungs apart. And he never survived. It didn't really survive that.
Amazing.
He lingered for a long time after that.
All right, and so then there was Timothy, right?
Timothy was the second child.
Okay, but he died relatively
Oh,
young.
he was 5 years old.
5 years.
Yes.
Wow.
But the next, Charlie Myers would be in this picture.
All right.
And Charlie would have been 5 years younger than my father. But as he got older, when he was 21, 22...
What do you mean 5 years older?
The 5 year, Charlie was born in 1892, and my father was born in 1897.
Right, okay.
See, so there were five, but there were a couple of children, the one in between. The next one was Catherine.
Now, Charles ended up going to Georgetown.
He did go to Georgetown Law School.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if he went in there when he was maybe 20 or 21. I think he just had an average job when he may have been 19 or 20.
Yeah.
And then he went to Georgetown.
Wow.
And the process was a little bit different in 1920. But at some point, anyone who lives in Washington or even in its environs could easily check to see who would have, when he would have graduated from Georgetown University. And I think it would have been in the 20s. I think it would have been in the 1920s.
That's interesting. And then, so
And
then
after Charlie, Catherine Myers was born in 1894.
1894.
And she was a school teacher in Providence.
Okay, and that would have been this little girl here.
Yes,
Right.
yes, that would have been Catherine. Yes,
Yeah.
Stephen.
Did she ever marry, or?
No, she didn't. But she took very good care of her mom.
Oh, Julia.
Yeah, and she used to take her out to the Little Red Hen, which wasn't too far from the house, and they used to go out to eat. And
Now, I noticed she died in 1938. Technically,
Yes.
she died before her mother.
she died before her mother. Yes, she did. She was coming from school. She was at Kenyon Street School, the teacher over there. And coming from school, she had a funny sensation in her head and pulled over. And she didn't go unconscious immediately, but she asked this young boy to tell someone to get an ambulance. And they did. And they took her from the hospital. But wasn't somebody was the good Lord was protecting over that she had stopped her car. She pulled over and stopped her car and asked for help.
Wow.
And they took her to the Chapin Hospital, which is one of the buildings that PC owns now, down here on Eaton Street. And she was in there for maybe 2 or 3 days
Wow.
when she died. And
You mean like where they actually have like living halls down?
oh no,
PCOs
the Chapin Hospital
Chapin
was the city hospital.
Oh, the city hospital.
But it was the nearest hospital from North Main Street. I think when she was on her way home, she would at one point be on North Main Street and going to Methil Street. They lived over on the east side. And Methil went down to Lorimer, and Lorimer went into the Blackstone Boulevard.
Wow. Wow.
Now, when, all right, that was Catherine, and then
your father.
my father was number 5.
Wow.
So he was the 5th of 9. There were 4 older than him and 4 younger. He was in the middle.
Yeah.
And he was born in 1897 and January of 1897.
January of 1897. Now we'll talk more because I'm definitely
Yeah.
want to go back to him.
Absolutely.
But we'll finish off the other children. Eleanor.
Eleanor was born in 1899, and she was at home. And then she dated a guy by the name of Bill Hayes for some time, and I'm remorseful over the fact that I never asked my father where Steve Hayes came from. Bill Hayes came from. Did he live in Providence or did he live in Pawtucket? But I know that he died at Zambarano Hospital in 1927 or 28, but I think it was 1928. And I think there was a death certificate for him that I did see at one time, but I still could not nail down where he came from.
Right.
But she used to go out to visit him.
Even though he was sick.
Even though he was sick. And then, of course, it's just so unusual that she died in 1929.
Right.
But my Aunt Julia told me one time, my Aunt Helen was a very social person and had a ton of friends. And they were calling her all the time, wanted her to go here, go there. And my grandmother thought that she thought that she was running herself off her feet, and because she had so many friends. And she remembers her, my Aunt Julia said she remembers her mother talking to her and said that you're going to get sick if you don't slow down, you know. And of course she died in 1929. About
And what would that been from?
She had consumption, and also Bill Hayes died of that, but at the hospital.
So she probably got it from visiting him.
Well,
Maybe.
maybe, but that you won't be able to. I did look up her death certificate, but it was of no help as to where she got it.
And again, consumption is
a disease of the lungs. And it would take you within probably a year. It would depend upon the severity of the disease. But the likelihood of eliminating it when you got it was not that great.
Yeah.
A lot of it had to do with climate. If you were in an industrial, had consumption, and you were in an area that may have been close to a manufacturing plant, they would say that, is there any way that you can get removed to go to a higher altitude or something where the air would be cleaner? It would be very important.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I'm looking at it, I'm thinking, how many children died before Julie?
There were 5 of them.
Yeah, 1, 2, right, 3,
3, 4, 5. That was it. Mary, Julia, Vincent, and my father were the 4 survivors.
Yeah.
But she did bury 5 of her children. 4 of the 5 were adults. Yeah, and my mother used to say that she could not have had a very easy life, you know, but she never complained.
Yeah.
And she never bemoaned her fate and all like that, but she felt very keenly. It took a toll on her when the oldest son died. Somebody told my mother that her hair went white with, shortly after he had died. That her hair changed colors, yeah.
Julia.
Yeah. And my mother thought that it had a lot to do. She keenly felt his death.
And then there's Vincent.
Vincent was the, well, he would have been after Eleanor, born in 1903, and he died in 1979, yeah. And then I was,
Now, did he married later?
late in life, yes. When I went into the service in 1952, I was down to training in Fort Lee, Virginia, just south of Petersburg, and Petersburg would be south of Richmond. And when I was down there, I remember my mother writing and telling me that Uncle Ben was marrying Corrine. He went with Corrine Dolly, who was a woman that lived in Providence, but was originally from Woonsocket. Corrine was married and had a daughter, and her husband died. And I think that my Uncle Vin may have been dating her, possibly from around 1940, because my Aunt Mary said that I think my mother knew that Vincent was going with somebody. That was in 1940, so he didn't marry until about 12 years after.
Now, my dad always tells me stories that Aunt Bess, in a way, took care of him a little bit. Was that?
Yeah, she cooked in the house after my mother
Now, who
died.
did Aunt Bess end up marrying? How did I forget how Aunt Bess married into?
Well, my Aunt Bess,
the Morris side, really.
well, she was on the Morris side, and she was the oldest of 12.
Okay.
They came from Cranston. They were from Cranston, and they lived in the village. And when she met my Uncle Bill, she had a string of brothers and sisters that were, they were toddlers. They were like, the youngest was like, Joseph, yeah. That's correct. And then my Aunt Julia was born in 1904. She followed Vincent. And then Mary was born in 1909.
There was only one thing to do.
Now, tell me about your dad. I mean, I don't, hear too much like.
No, I can tell you many things about him.
Yeah, I think it's still filming. Let me just,
Well, that's all right. I can tell you some things about him.
5 minutes left.
Yeah, that may of interest, and one was that when my father was 16 or 17, about 17, he left school because he had an opportunity to become a cigar maker. Now, when people were making $12 a week, $14 a week. Well, it's just hard to envision the difference in currency, what you could do with $14 in 1914, 15, or 16. And when my father had an opportunity to learn cigar making, which was a trade, he was making maybe about $30 a week or $35. He was making double what most men were making, 10, 15 years older than he was, and he was making like triple what others were making at the time.
Wow.
But he never ever said much about it because I think that he felt that it was a big mistake for him because he was a very good reader. And the fact that he left school may have troubled him, and he did not discuss it a lot. No, he did not. He did not discuss that, but I always felt that he was so insistent on his own children going to school. That was the bottom line. He said, you got to stay in school. And I think that drive came from his own experiences. Even though he didn't say that to me, my feeling was it came from that. And then